Okay, good evening, Rabbi. We are on Daf Dalet on the base, and we're in the middle of making the calculations of the size of the Yamsha Shloimeh, the big water pool which Shlomo Melech built, in which the Kohanim would do would wash their hands and feet. And so we said over there is a number in the Pasuk says 2,000 bas, which we didn't really explain what it is, but it will become evident in a minute later, a few minutes. But they had a brisa, which the brisa says that the amount of water which was in there was 150 mikvahs. And yesterday, so it's 150 mikvahs, that's the amount of water which was there, contained in that pool. And the mikvah just went through the psukim yesterday, has in it 40 sa'ah. Okay. Now the Gemara asks a question. So the Gemara is going to ask a question that how does that brisa fit in with the measurements which are given in the pasuk? Because we've given measurements for the pasuk. Let's remind ourselves the diameter was 10 amas, the circumference was 30 amas. So how does and the depth of that pool was 5 amas. So how does such a container have in it? How does it work out to be 150 mikvahs? So the first question which the Gemara is going to ask, that there's much more than 150 mikvahs over there. Okay, and so the Gemara is going to make a calculation to show that there's more than 150 mikvahs. Let me just say that the Gemara is going to start off by making the calculation of the volume of a square, not counting for the fact that it's a round pool and not a square. So all the calculations will be based on the fact on these dimensions of 30 and 5 and 10, but it will be based on a square or cube, a square, not it's a round. And the Gemara is going to answer, yes, but that's if it's square. But if it's round, so then it's going to be less. So let's just go through it and say it in some. So the Gemara says, the Gemara says, okay, you said before it's 150 meters. Okay, now let's try and figure out how many saw. The mikvah is 40 saw. Now let's figure out how many saw go into this pool. Now this pool is. This pool is what? Is 10. 10 is the length, and the 10 is the length, and also the width is 10. The length is 10, and the width is 10. Basically, diameter both ways is 10. So it's 10 by 10. Like I said before, we're not counting it as a square. We're sort of calculating now as not counting as a circle, but as a square. That's how we calculate. So it's 10 by 10, and the height is 5. So that means 100 times 5, 100 times 5 cubic amma. So it's a 10 times 10 is 100 times 5, which is 500. It means 500 cubic amma we have there. Let's see, mikveh is 40 saw, which also works out to be, the Gemara had that before, 3 cubic amma. It's 3 amas by 1 amma by 1 amma. It's 3 cubic amma. So the Gemara asks, Kama havul chamesh met garmidi. So it's 500 cubic amma. Okay, now let's make the calculation. How many mikvahs do we get out of 500 cubic amma? So he says, the tlas meya, for 300 cubic ammas, we get 100 mikvahs. Each mikvah is 3 ammas. So 300 cubic ammas of water is going to be 100 mikvahs. The meya v'chamshin, the last meya, the meya v'chamshin, to get 115, I had to get 150. So to get 150, so it's Chamshin. To get 100. 1 second. Sorry. Let me again. Litras Meya. For 300, you get 100 mikvahs. The Meya v'Chamshin, for 150 cubic amos, 150 cubic amos, you get 50 mikvahs. So we've used up so far 300 cubic amos. We've added another 150 cubic amos, and we already have our 150 mikvahs. So the Arba Mea v'Chamshin Sagya. So to make 150 mikvahs, it's enough to have 450 cubic amas. So we still have 50 cubic amas extra, which was in the pool by the calculation. It was like we made before, that it's 10 times 10 times 5 is.
It's so silly. I'm so silly. Darn it.
Is somebody speaking to me?
No, somebody speak to his child.
Okay. So then it's so we have 50. So we have 50 cubic amas of water, which more in that container, in that pool, than the 150 mikvahs. Okay. So the Gemara says, one second. Hani mili the calculation you make is based that you get in 500, 10 times 10 times 5, which is 500 cubic amas. But that's good if it's square and cube, yeah. But Yamsha also Shlomo Ogol we just not learned that it's a circle. It was round, so therefore, since it's round, so it's going to be less than if it would be a square cube. So let's see. Kamo meruba. Yes, so let's make so that's the answer. The answer is it's much less water went in because it was round. It wasn't square, so less water went in. So the Gemara asks again, Michdi, let's see. Okay, let's calculate it according to what you're on. Let's calculate according to that. Kama meruba yasar ala ogel. How much is a square more than a round, a circle? Revia, it's 25%. So the area of in the square is 25% greater than a circle which is inside that square. In other words, so if you want to calculate the area of the square, you have to diminish it by 25%. So that we're going to do that now. So let's see. So we said before 500. So we made the calculation on the square, which is a cube square. So we said it's 500 cubic amas. Okay, we're going to diminish it by a quarter. So we'll do it bit by bit. 400 of these cubic amas, we can diminish it by 25%. That means by quarter. That means it's going to become 300. 300. So instead of having 400 cubic amas, we'll make it a quarter less. So it's 300 cubic amas. 300 cubic amas. That's exactly 100 mikvahs. So so 400 cubic amas, you're getting 100 mikvahs out of it because you have to diminish it by a quarter, like I said before, because it's a circle. Then there's 100 cubic amas from the original calculation of 500 still left. So we have to diminish that by a quarter as well. So how much if you diminish it by a quarter? 100 by a quarter, you diminish it, it comes out to be 75. 75 cubic amas. Now, 3 cubic amas in the mikvah, say 25 mikvahs. So it's esrim v'chamisha. So hani meya v'esrim v'chamisha have a look. So if that's the case, so if we're doing our calculations, so the so now that we've taken into account the fact that it was circular and not a square shape, so it's 125 mikvahs. We still not getting it. It's less than the amount which was said in the brisa. There was 150 mikvahs. It was actually, according to the calculation, it's only 125 mikvahs. Okay, so what do we do? Tani Rabbi has a solution to this. How we get into the 150 mikvahs into it. So the Rabbi Cheskel said, Yam she'osa shleima, the Yam Shleima made sholish ames tachtonos merubois So it says actually the bottom part of that pool was actually square. So the first 3 amas of height, so it was a square shape, and so therefore, since the square shape, so you actually 10 times 10 times 3, so it's 300. So you get it into the 300 cubic amas. So shlosh amas tachtonis merubois. So the bottom 3 amas was square, so you get into 300 cubic amas, which is 100 mikvois. And then v'shtayim elyonis agulis. So the top 2 the amas, they were circular. Now the top 2 amas were circular. So that I'm not going to make the calculation now. So that works out to be exactly 50 mikvahs. Let's see, 150 saw. If it would 2 times, let's say 10 times 10 times 2 is 200. So it's 200 cubic amas. If it's square, take away 25%, which is 50 out of 225% is 50. So it's 150 cubic amas. 150 cubic amas. That's 50 mikvahs. So there we have it. So it works out perfectly. It works out perfectly that there's 150. That the bottom 3 amas were square shape. The top was circular, therefore was less, and so therefore you end up with 150 mikvahs. Okay, fine. So now Gemara asks, "Nihide ipchele motz amres." This is for the ogol ksiv. Okay, so you can't say the other way. You have to say that when you're trying to make it fit in, so you're going to have to say the top was circular. That you have to say. If you want to make it, get in some more water into it, you have to make the bottom square. Fine. So but the top has to be circular because that's what it says in the pasuk. I think the question is Emachada, why? So maybe it was a bit bigger. Maybe just the top amma was, since anyway you're saying that it wasn't circular throughout, the bottom part was square. If you want to say that, so you might as well say it contained a bit more mikvahs. How do you know how many mikvahs it contained? Say it was the first cubit was circular, and the bottom 4 ammas was a square shape, and therefore it was taken more than 150 mikvahs. So now the word comes back. It said the hem is that the whole size made the whole calculation. But the emes is in the pasuk itself. You can see there was 150 mikvahs. It's from the pasuk itself. As it says, so yes, yes. How do we know that it changed after 3 amas and 2 amas? The Gemara says no. The measurement actually is in the pasuk itself. It gives you the measurement of the water. Let's talk about it. You can't say that. It says in the pasuk, alpayim bas yochel, 2,000 bas it contained. How much is this bas? Bas kamahava. How much is a bas? Sholish soin. A bas is 3 saw. So that's 3 saws a bas. A bas is an ephah. An ephah is 3 saws. Same thing. Yeah. So it's 3 saw. And but how do you know? It says in the pasuk. It says Meiser habas min hakur. That the 10th of Meiser habas min hakur. That bas is a 10th of a kur. Now a kur is 30 saw, and if Meiser of 30 saw is a bas, Meiser habas min hakur. So you take out the Meiser of the bas from the kur. So that means that the bas is the Meiser from the kur. So the 10th it means the kur is 30, so that's 10. It's 3 saw. Yeah. So the kur is, so the bas is 3 saw. So if the bas is 3 saw, so let's see. If it says 2,000 bas, how many saw is that? The Havlu Shita Alpha Grivi. So the kids, it's 6. 2,000 bas is 3 times the amount, is 6,000 saw. So if it's 6,000 saw, 6,000 saw works out to be 150 mikvahs. Let's see. How much is a mikvah? 40 saw. 40 saw is a mikvah. Now, 100 mikvahs. So let's add 2 zeros. So it's 4,000 saw. 150 is half of that. So add so 150 mikvahs. So you add another 50, another half of the 4,000. So you add 2,000 to 4,000. It's 6,000. So 6,000 saw works out to be exactly the amount of 6,000 wasn't exactly the amount of 150 mikvahs. So therefore, it's actually the pasuk says it's 150 mikvahs. So so we did a bit of geometry and so on, but the pasuk actually gives us the volume of 6,000 so, which is 150. Okay, fine. Okay, so we've established that the Yam Rosh Hashanah had in it whatever 2,000 bucks. I'm gonna ask the question 1 second. Like Ksiv Machzikim Basim Shloishes Alofim. There's another post. It says that Machzik Basim Shloishes. It was able to hold. It was able to hold 3,000 bas. So now, till now we had the size. That was from this pasuk. But there's another pasuk. It says that it could hold the size of 3,000 bas, which is another third, another 50% extra, whatever. Which it's another 1,000 bas. So the Gemara says ahula gutsha. That's talking about solids. Solids gutsha means when you pile it up. So when you put solids into such a container, then you can go pile it up much higher. I'm looking at the skips outside in my road, and I can see that you can pile them higher and higher and higher. Yeah, so when you're able to pile up high, so you have solid stuff, you're able to pile it up higher. So then it's actually such a size container. A pool, you can actually fill it up with 3,000 bas of solid stuff. Okay. Rabbi says Shmamina Hai Gutsha Tilsa. So we see that when they have a keli, so when you have a keli, so therefore when you fill it up and you heap it, Gutsha means to heap it. I don't remember if I translated it properly. So Gutsha means you heap it up. When you heap it up, so when you heap it up, then it adds a third. And Tosfos says that it means it's negate to make chamemka. For instance, if I say I'll sell you this container, I don't know, this container full of wheat. Now, wheat is a solid, so I have to give it a heap container. So a heap container, or if I say a heap, So then if a heap container, so a heap container means it's going to have 33% more than if it be just liquid, because you can heap it up and make it higher. And if there's one or two questions over here in the Rishonim, I will not touch it. Osnan Nami, we also learned Shida Teva. Okay, fine. So that's the principle, that if you heap up something, you end up having in solids, and you heap the vessel up, you get up a third more than liquids. Nami Shida Teva Migdal. These different types of boxes. The kaveres hakash, the kaveres hakanim. If it's a kaveres, it's like a beehive type of situation. It's made out of straw, or made out of canes, kanim, uboir, spin alexandris, the boir, which is meant for the boats, the boir which is meant for boats, the kitzer. So these are containers. We're talking about here about tumah v'tara. Do these kalim become tumah? So this Mishnah says, even though it has a base, the hemachzikis arba'im so even though they have a base, and the machzikis arba'im so belach, and they contain 40 saw liquid. Shehem kurayim biyovish. The kur we said before is 30 saw. Kurayim is 60 saw, twice 30, 60. So it's another. It's a 33% more than the arbaim saw. So the Tohirim is Torah. So just first the Mishnah. So what's the Mishnah saying? Basically, such a large container which can take arbaim saw, that is not the gather. It's not the does not fall into the category of a keli, and therefore it's not mekabel tumah. Something to be mekabel tumah, an object to be mekabel tumah has to be a keli. A plain piece of wood is not a keli, and therefore a plain piece of wood is not mekabel tumah. It has to be a keli. If it's so large that it contains arbaim saw, so then that's not considered a keli. The reason why it's not considered a keli because you can't carry it when it's full. A keli is you should be able to carry both empty and when it's full. Now these kelim are so large, when it's full, you can't carry it. Therefore, it's not considered the keli. So we see again the same principle that always we're speaking about that the solids is always a third more. I'm just wondering myself. I don't have any clear solutions. Just wondering for myself. It could be that was more or less the standard shape and size of the kelim. The way they used to do was more or less a standard size, and you would end up having a third more, because it really does depend on the shape of the kelim, the depth of the kelim, etc., on a number of factors. I'm sure some people will give us a more clear idea, but I'm just suspecting this was on no basis. I'm just suspecting that the general sort of way people made the kelim, it would work out to be the shape and the volume would work out to be in such a way. Anyway, Mishnah. We said the lechis. So how long is the lechi? How big does the lechi have to be? So it has to be a lechi has to be high. We spoke about being matter a movi with the curry of the lechi. So the lechi has to be 10 tefachim high. The width and the thickness is any amount. Any no particular shear, no particular measurement. So we'll soon discuss that. Rabbi says it has to have a width of 3 tefachim. So it has to be 3 tefachim wide in order to be kosher for a lech. That's the machlekes. Lechem she'omro. So Gemara says 1 second. Lemus. Why say the plural? Lemet non stomach Rebbe Elazar. Do we hold up Rebbe Elazar? Need to have on a movie. Need to have 2 leches. Remember before we learned that in the Mishnah that Rebbe Elazar says you have the Omar. He says lechi b'inu. We need to have 2 leches. So Gemara says no. We don't pass Rebbe Elazar. My lechi the alma. He's speaking Lashon Rabbi because he's speaking about all the different mavos. So when you're making lechis for all those mavos, it says each one each. So then you should have it. He speaks about the shear, the size of it. So 1 second, the Gemara says, why all of a sudden Balechi does use a plural? The earlier Mishnah speaks about Kair, Nami is the Kairis. Should say Kairis in the plural. My Kairis the Alma, the same logic. You're talking about all the mobs, and therefore you use the word the plural, because you're talking about lots of mobs. The Kitzer, so the Gemara says, okay, the Gemara changes. You can't say that teretz doesn't work. So he says, we're referring to this, this machlokes about the lechis. That's why he uses Lashon Rabbi, because the machlokes about the lechis. And so one says you need 2, one says you don't need 2, one is enough. So the machlokes is about the lechis. So the eis and nechlok, and that's why he uses the plural. Eis and lech nechlok. Those lechis is goyven asarat tefachim. It's a high 10 tefachim. In other words, the Mishnah now is not sort of accepting the ruling of Rebbe Elazar. It's just referring back without getting into it. Doesn't want to get into the machlokes. It says, but this machlokes, the size of the lechi is a high 10 tefachim. Then you finish off and the thickness and the width is any amount. Okay, now they're going to ask the question of the kama kol shehu and how much is kol shehu. Even kechut hasarbu. Okay, this needs a bit of explanation. So with kol shehu means any amount. So what's the Gemara asking kama kol shehu? So the Rishonim already say that even though we use the terminology of kol shehu, that means you can use, sometimes you'll use the amount of kol shehu, even if it's for a very small amount, but even then you might need a particular shear. So kol shehu does not necessarily mean there is no shear whatsoever. Some places you have lashon kol shehu, they bring a gemara, and it means a tefach. So that's what the gemara is asking. What's the amount? And even if it's the thickness of the thread of a sarbel. I think the chut sarbel is a thread, which is sarbel is some type of item of clothing. So the thread which you use for that, some type of overalls or some type of rough clothing, which use a bit of a thicker thread. So if it's as thick as that, that's which is quite small. That's kosher enough that's kosher enough to be a lechi. But the truth of the matter is that even in chut hasarbel, there's the machlokes in Rishonim. Some Rishonim say that chut hasarbel, yes, it has to be the amount of a chut hasarbel, which one shear which I saw in the Rishonim is an etzba, the size of a finger, or But others, at the end of the day, in Shulchan Aruch also accepts mashru, any amount, but it has to have a bit of solidity. Not you can't just paint it on. Paint is not good enough. It has to be some sort of solidity to it, but there's no amount in mashru. Yeah. So and therefore, and according to Shulchan Aruch, Chut HaSarbel is just an example of something which is very little, but it doesn't. We don't have to start going around trying to measure what the Chut HaSarbel's sizes are. No, any mashru, as long as it's a mashru, but it has to be some solid. Okay, fine. Tana will in the brayso also lech lechetzi mavui. If you make the lech in the middle of the mavui, instead of doing the lech by the opening of the mavui, you made it in the middle. No, is mavui ein lechetzi. There's only half a mavui. You can't carry that half which doesn't have that lech. Pshita slava pasha. There's no lech that I have to be able to carry. No, so the Gemara says no. That the chiddush is the other way around. Not that you can't carry the place with no lech. The first half of the mavui, because let's say the lech is in the middle of the mavi, so the first half of the inner half of the mavi, where to which there is a lechi, so it is a bit of a chiddush that you're allowed to carry. Why is it a chiddush? Because you might think you should be geyser that once you start carrying the mavi, you might carry the whole mavi. So let's do it inside. It's also pshita. If you make it the lech in the middle, so okay, so you can carry it to the lech and not further. So what's the? No, so says it is a chiddush. You might if you carry the mavi, usually if you this mavi you can't carry, this mavi you can't carry. So once you can carry half the mavi, people will carry the whole mavi. So we said no, we don't worry about it. Okay. Rabbi said also if the lechi is 3 tvachim higher than the what's it called, than the karka, you put the lechi, you're stuck on a piece of wood as a lechi, but it's a 10 tvachim high or more, whatever it is. But the bottom part of it is not touching the floor, and there's a gap of 3 tvachim between the end of the lechi and the floor. So, or the lechi put in a post, but the post is removed from the wall a distance of 3 tvachim. Is loy also that doesn't count for anything. It doesn't count. Why? Because it's if it's less than these amounts, then we say lower. But the moment you reach 3, then the klal of lower doesn't apply anymore. Because so therefore it's not a good lechi. And he's saying I feel Reb Shimon, and that even according to Reb Shimon, that says that extends the measure, he enlarges the measure of lower to 4 tvachim. The Omer Avrin Lavud, he says we do say Lavud, and even till 4 tvachim will say Lavud. So Hanimili, when is that Lamaila? That you can do that if something is high up, when you have a kaira, when you have a gap from between the kaira and the wall, etc. Then you can say, then you can have the Lavud of 4 tvachim. But underneath the pile, if it's on the floor. So then, practically, it practically is going to be people are going to cross it over. What? Not people. Sorry, the gedoyim. So the gedoyim, the goats who run around, the animals, the gedoyim, which they'll go through it because if it's the three tvachim, the one with 3 tvachim space. So there's a 3 tvachim space. So then the goats can fit through it, and if the goats can fit through it, so therefore, even though in principle there is a din of lavud, when practically it's shown to be a non-mechitza, then it doesn't count. So the fact that the gedoyim abayt, it will override, so to speak, the general klal of lavud, which would apply, which is the halachic concept. But if the poil, so in Lamaila, there's no gedoyim, they don't walk Lamaila. But the matter where there's more usage, and you have goyim as well, so therefore it won't apply the din of law. And I don't intend to say that you have to. It's only in a city which has goyim, but the potential for it, that is enough to that cancel out the din of law if it's on the ground where there's a loss of usage on the ground. Okay. Yeah, so Rabbi says that the lechi has to be 3 tvachim. So the Rabbi Yosef said in the name of Shmuel, not Allah, not like Rabbi Yosef. I just don't have time. Hilmi means in the dinim of making salt water. That Rabbi Yosef he answers that minadin you're allowed to put in if a small amount, to make a small amount of salt water, which you need for one suda, you're allowed to make that on Shabbos, and it's not, it doesn't, there's no gzeres that are rabbanon of ma'abed. Ma'abed means processing. Salt water is a part of the processing. It's a part of ma'abed. You make salt water, then you use it. It's all part of processing ma'abed. And so, but if you make a amount for one suda, then that's okay. Rabbi Yossi disagrees with that. So the ein halach Rabbi Yossi loy behilmi, not in hilmi, that's with the salt water, but loy belechi, and not with the lechi. That what it has to be 3 tvachim. That's who said in the name of Shmuel. Only Rabbi Huna behilmi. So Rabbi Huna said, he says to Rabbi Yosef, behilmi amrislam. You told us about hilmi that Allah is not like Rabbi Yosef. The lechin loy amrislam. You didn't tell us about lechin. In other words, he's sort of trying to say that now you're saying this, but you never told us in the past. You never used to tell us that, and there's a good reason why. There's a reason to differentiate between hilmi and lechin, even though both of them, it's Rabbi Yossi who is a yochid. He is arguing with the rabbanon. It's either we pass on Rabbi Yossi against the rabbanon, or rabbanon against Rabbi Yossi. But the fact that Mechalek has a bit of there's a reason for it. Why? So Ma'ashta behilmi, the pliga the rabbanon. I was ask a question. Ma'ashta behilmi. What's the difference? What's the difference between hilmi that Rav Huna was insisting that that there is a difference between hilmi and the lechin. The Ma'ashta behilmi, the pliga rabbanon alei, and therefore lechinami pliga rabbanon alei. So therefore, if we pass in one, like the Rabbanon against Rabbi Yossi, so always pass the Rabbanon against it. If you pass Rabbi Yossi against Rabbanon, you always pass Rabbi Yossi against Rabbanon. Which way is it? So kids are Amalei shiny lechiem should be Rebbe Kavasei. So by Hilmi Taka, we pass like the Rabbanon against Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi with the Rabbanon, so we pass Rabbanon against Rabbi Yossi. But Hilmi, which Rabbi also holds like him, I just don't have the time to go through. But we already learned. With the story of two chatzeres a few pages ago, a few days ago, we learned about the story of two chatzeres that has to be 3 tvachim on each side, and it's a brisa of Rabbi, and Rabbi the 3 tvachim is based on because Rabbi holds like place. Anyway, so the Koi Rabbi so therefore, once he has a support of Rabbi, then we pass him like Rabbi Yossi. It's not him, it's not a yochid. There's more than Rabbi. Okay. Rav Chumi Masni Hochi. Here, this a different version of this concerning the halacha in regards to the Beis and Rabbanon. With the brother Shmuel Ashilas Mishmei Rav. So he said the name of Rav. Ein halacha Rabbi. So this son of Rabbi Shmuel Ashilas, he said that the name of Rav. Ein halacha Rabbi. In neither of these cases where they argue is a halacha like Rabbi Yossi. The Rabbanon argue, of course. Allah like Rabbanon. Yeah. Amrulay, but later they asked this Rabbi Chumi, they asked Rabbi Chumi, Amras, you said that? Did you say that Allah is not like Rabbi Yossi? Amrulay, he said no. Why was he in denial? He was in denial because he changed his mind. As the Gemara will soon give the reason, he changed his mind. He changed his mind, therefore he thought Allah is like Rabbi Yossi, even though it's against Rabbanon. Interesting. Yeah. Omar Rav, so Rav says, Kim Omra, Omra, he said it. And we learned it from him. My time what's the reason why he changed his mind? And it changed and decided to pass him like Rabbi Yossi. Because Rabbi Yossi, everything which he said was good reasons. Therefore, since he has good reasons, so therefore the Allah should be like Rabbi Yossi, even though it's against the Rabbanon. So we have basically here. So Rabbi Chumi originally, he said halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi, because he thought halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi because halacha, because even though Rabbi Yossi has good reasons is very fine. That's if you're arguing against one person, but that's not when you argue against Rabbanon. That's the Rishonim explain in such a way that what's the difference between before the Paskan against Rabbi Yossi, because even though we have a cloud, Rabbi Yossi no mukhi, the reasons has a good reason. A yochid is a good reason. It's not, that's good for one yochid against another yochid. Everything is more, since he's more reasonable, so therefore the halacha should be like him. But against the rabbim, we don't say that. And then later he changed his mind that even against the rabbim, the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. But Rabbi refused that, and he sort of still persevered with the old way. That you shouldn't say nemuke ime against a rabbi. Okay, on the Rabbi Barachanam Rabbi Hilchas Samai, what's halacha? So the paskan. So what's halacha? The paskan like Rabban or Rabbi Yossi. They put chazim ayam the bar. So go have a look what people are doing, and people they make a lech without people. So this halacha is like Rabbanon, not like Rabbi Yossi, even though Rabbi Yossi muki ime, but not against Rabbanon. Okay. Even the maslaha. Some said this story with the when he was told, go see how people are behaving. It goes on a different story. Somebody who's thirsty, what bracha does it make in water? So it says it makes bracha shaklim b'dvari. The Taf Neimri said bracha berin of foshes rabbis v'srein. You say the bracha berin of foshes. Rashi brings a pirush that talking about the bracha after drinking the water. But Rashi himself is of the opinion that, and many of the Rishonim also agree with him that and Rishonim agree with him that with the machlokes is what bracha you make before you drink. So one says shakal nibudvar, and Rabbi Tarfon says that you make burn foshes before you drink the water. The pile we make shakal before, and then we make a burn foshes afterwards. Yeah. What's up? Like Rabbi Tarfon or the first Tana, see what people are doing, that they make what make a shakal. Yeah.